The International Blind Cafe 18 Plus presents Conversations from Booth 6.
This episode is brought to you by Dots 123.
Order up.
Is this the one for booth 6?
Yep.
Welcome back, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us here in Booth 6 at the International Blind Cafe. This time we're going to turn our attention to something that gets a lot of attention, good and bad. That's right, assistive technology. Some of us find it very, very handy, and we get right into it and use it without any trouble. Others have a challenge with it. So, without further ado, Jason, if you would, share with us maybe something that's good and something maybe not so good, or something that's challenged you with assistive technology.
Well, before I lost my sight, I was always into the Facebook, and I was using my smartphone like anybody else from my generation, kind of getting by, because I'm from that generation that kind of watched computers come along. But I was never right into the technology. It was there. Remember, I was a truck driver before that, so the smartphone was useful to a certain extent, but nothing major. And all of a sudden, I went blind, and I went blind during COVID. So there was no one there to say, like, right beside me to say, "Hey, look what your phone can do." So eventually, all of a sudden, hey, someone says, "Just tell your iPhone to turn voiceover on." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, tell your iPhone to turn voiceover on. Hold the button on the side and say turn on voiceover." So I did that, and holy shit, the phone read what was on the screen. So after that and learning some things, that changed the whole dynamic of the phone. It did cause it to become a frisbee a little bit, but I did get fully into it, and using the little bit of technological background I did have, I've fudged my way through it and gotten along. But back to the frisbee, I know, Christopher, you have the same frustrations I have. So why don't you lead on and tell about your most expensive frisbee story?
Well, having lost my sight only about 4.5 years ago, my first assistive tech device was an iPad. And like you mentioned about the Siri telling the device to turn voiceover on or turn voiceover off, I wasn't used to that. I'm used to like a light switch, mechanical, and turn it on, turn it off. I'm used to having a tactile number pad, which is something like a microwave or a washing machine. We can push a button or turn a dial. I wasn't used to the touch screen on the iPad, but it's having to learn a technology that had a different interaction with between human and technology. I hadn't got used to voice control. I hadn't got used to a touch screen, but having, like Jason said, the side button or the voice command, I had to go through to learn that. It's just, I don't know these things. I don't know the commands. I don't know the controls by voice. I had to learn it all over from point A onward. It's just, how do you start from a grade school level understanding barely to where I am now? But it's an expensive frisbee when you get frustrated. This darn thing isn't working the way I'd like to think it would or should. I've got to the point now where I can check email, I can find things on the internet that I couldn't find before without a mechanical keyboard with a desktop. I can find things using voice control alone, but it's taken me quite the journey just getting by with no keyboard, no mechanical switches, no tactile information, just a touch screen and voice control. A new way of thinking, a new way of interacting with technology. It's just a new way of learning how to interact with technology aside from pushing buttons or pulling switches. I got so used to being almost in my 60s now. I got so used to having switches, buttons, touchscreens now, voice controls. I'm still getting used to it, but iPad's a very expensive frisbee, in my opinion.
Well, it does fly through the air with such aerodynamics.
Yeah, that's it.
So, Terrence, I know you're one that kind of plays around with both the iOS or the Apple's operating system and the Android operating system. So how did you come into to tune with as technology has come along?
Um, for my work at the school, before either one of those, there was always Windows, right? Windows Mobile was on the phones, and it was interesting using it. In those days, oh God, and that was like 2007. We call it 2007 those days now. Goodness. But in those days, you had to buy a third party software for it. And my job used an Exchange server, right? So I needed to be able to have my contacts, emails, my work email, and everything. So at the time, I was one of those few people fortunate to cash out for it. I bought a new phone and paid $300 for the software, and I rocked out with it for a couple of years. I got my first Android phone, I think around 2010, 2011, and you still had to pay. You had to pay for this accessibility suite, and I liked it, but it was still limited at the time because it came with its own dialer. For those of you that use Android, your phone app is called your dialer. It came with its own dialer. It came with its own message app. It was message, email, internet, and dialer, and they were still real limited. You couldn't use any of the native things on the phone, which, was where the good stuff was. And if you got too far outside the suite, it didn't talk to you. I experienced my first iPhone in 2012, which at the time was spot on for a visually impaired user because they were exclusive, really exclusive at one point. They're not. I can't say they're not. They're just not anymore because all the carriers have them. You can get them at Walmart, Sam's Club, anywhere. You can get an iPhone now, right? But for the people that bought into the exclusivity at the time, out of the box for a blind person, out of the box, the phone talked to you. It's been doing it since I think either the second or the third edition of the iPhone, and I like that. I like that. The most you really needed a sighted person to do then was turn the device on, and so I have been using one now since like 2012, and I decided to start playing back around with Android because they're starting to make they've made leaps and bounds with their accessibility suite. And as we all can attest to, sometimes it's nice to have options. And that played a big part. Wasn't it, Jason? We had an issue with the Facebook Messenger app at one point, with where the Android users couldn't get on for a little bit, but the iPhone users could. And then it was the iPhone users was getting this weird scrolling thing, but the Android users weren't. So it allows flexibility with both. And then with music, there are certain restrictions with being able to share files with iOS that you don't get with Android. So you get to play around with both, the best of both worlds with it in my view, and I love it.
And Eddie, what's your stand on the assistive tech just in general for now?
Oh, I'm still living in 1985, so all this new technology is new and confusing at times. But I didn't get my iPhone until about 6 years ago, and I didn't know iPhone. I just knew everybody else that had iPhones, but they didn't have the talking feature. Didn't know anything about it. Voiceover. So I was kind of aggravated that I was just stuck with my flip phone that talked to me when I dialed the keypad. I thought that was cool. And then I found out you can get voiceover on the iPhone. Then I got an iPhone. I'm like, holy cow, this is awesome. I don't have to do that. When you text with a flip phone, you gotta you gotta hit the button for each letter. Drove her crazy. Now with the Siri and everything, you can just talk right into the phone and text message people or search the internet, like we said, and with all the other apps on it for doing things in life, like barcode reader. for reading what type of stuff you have in your pantry, because corned beef hash and baked beans feel the same when you shake the can, but they're definitely not interchangeable when you're eating. You know, so it's helpful for that, or a money reader. I thought that was great. It had a little handheld one that I used to carry with me, but that was a pain in the butt to work or just to bring around with you. And then there's so many other apps on the iPhone that makes life that much easier for me. I think it's a great thing. But sometimes learning it, like you guys are saying, these iPhones, iPads make awesome frisbees. And I always wanted to put a blood pressure gauge on me to see how high my blood pressure goes when I'm trying to use one of those. You get frustrated,
Definitely. But and you speak of some of the other apps. I know there's a couple navigation apps that I like to use when I'm walking around. I like to use the one that it's called Soundscape. I find it's a very useful app when I'm out and about. It identifies what's around me. I can I can put markers built into markers into the app. So when I'm even walking around this bigger piece of property, I can put where my beehives are, put where the back field is, where the front door is, where the end of the driveway is. So if I go walking, I can find everything. So that's a very useful app. And two other apps I really like is the Seeing AI app, which will read my mail to me when I get mail that's in print, because I've only just started learning Braille. And then I love the Be My Eyes app. I use the Be My Eyes, the Be My AI part where you get to where they take a picture and then give it a very detailed description so you know what's around you, or you actually get a volunteer on the Be My Eyes and they can talk talk you through what's on the store shelf or whatever. There's several more apps out there, but those are the ones that I use on a regular basis. There's another one that's Ryan. It's another one I like to use too, which is another surroundings identifier. Um, Eddie, do you use any of those kinds of apps or?
Yeah, I do. I use those, and they are very helpful, like you say, or even trying to cross the street or make your way through a parking lot. Because the bigger the distance is, when you say walk straight, as we all know, you got to walk 100 yards. Running a straight line is very difficult because you start drifting left or right one way.
Yeah.
And having that service where someone can guide you into something, or you go to a shopping center, there's 20 stores in the shopping center. It's great to have an eyeball there that can read the sign for you, to let you know which one you're at. Yeah, I do use those for and I use them for reading my mail too. Just like you do. And, the GPS apps for when you're walking, like you say, it's very helpful with all of them.
How about you, Terrence? Do you find any of those apps, or do you have other apps that you use?
So I've used CNAI on Android before. So CNAI just became available, to my understanding, in the Play Store maybe about a little earlier this year, give or take, right? A couple of months. So, but before that, there was a app on that was released for Android called Google. It was called Lookout, and it was very similar to CNAI, right? So if you for those listening, you have your options, CNAI or Lookout. I use running a Samsung, but to my knowledge, it was available through the Play Store on all Android devices. They both are now. I use Be My Eyes. The first app that I paid for, because a lot of people were complaining when I was switching to iPhone. It was like, well, Apple Charge. You can't get anything without putting a card on. And I was like, man, I don't care. I just want to work. Just need it to work. And so the first thing I bought was a money reader, money identifier. That was the best $10 I think I spent in my entire life.
Yep.
Being able just to, because you have the old money readers, right? But that you have to take out and slide it in and this, that, and other. But this way you can just scan it with your phone. And I've since purchased a more up-to-date version of it, but I like my money reader. I've used the CNAI. I love the way it works. Same thing with you, Jason, reading your mail. I have not had a chance to play around with the Be My Eyes AI, but I used before that was what was it called? Was it Tap C or something
Tap
like
tap
that? You guys,
C. Yep.
yeah, and they would take a picture. You would send a picture. It was no human interaction other than you take a picture, and the picture goes out to somebody else, and then it comes back, and they'll tell you what it is. And my dog is pitch black, and I took a picture of him in the hallway, and I guess the person couldn't see with the light. They said it was my teddy bear. Oh, I've used Ira, AIRA. Now that is a paid service. The difference with that is, so if you are handling like your social security stuff, because Be My Eyes, I first off, thank you to the people that volunteer to do Be My Eyes, because it is a volunteer service. So if any of you listening, thank you so much. You really help us out. We really appreciate it. But the difference is Ira. They have to go through police clearance. So people who do taxes, dealing with their banking information, right? They use IRA because it's a little bit more accountability. Those calls are recorded. I used that before being Be My Eyes. I found out about Be My Eyes, and to Eddie's point about walking straight, IRA's not allowed to tell you when to cross the street because that's liability. They can't tell you it's safe to cross the street. So I used to have fun trying to trying to figure out how to cross the street, especially like in construction. You got to figure out the right questions to ask. You can't say, "Can I cross the street?" You turn the phone and go, "What do you see?"
How about you, Christopher? What kind of apps and stuff are you using in the assistive tech world?
The first one that I think it's already been mentioned, the Be My Eyes, more specifically the Be My AI. I find that at least around the home, I can take a picture, and it gives me, as I've said before, a very detailed description of what it sees in the photograph. When I'm around my apartment, my home, it'll tell me things. It'll read banknotes, like tell me what a $10 bill is or a $20 bill, so I can separate those two, keep them differentiated in my wallet. I can take a picture if I've dropped something on the floor and I can't find it. It'll tell me where it is in the image. On at least two occasions so far, it's even found things I had left on the floor under my couch that I'd forgotten for at least a month. Oh, that's where I left that. But it just a simple one single app, Be My AI, which is a function of the Be My Eyes app. It gives me information. It gives me access to my environment that I hadn't had access to since I'd lost my sight. But when you can't see where things are on the floor, when you're blind, things on the floor that shouldn't be there become an obvious trip hazard. When you have a cell phone or an iPad with Be My AI, you can take a picture of the environment. It'll tell you, picture shows this on the floor on this location over here. It'll show you where something is, what something is, or what it appears to be, which, in my opinion, is a great, huge benefit for someone with visual impairments. When we can't see, that's where that is. It should be there. I know where to find it. But that, I think, that one alone has been the greatest app I've had so far. I haven't had the chance to try these apps for knowing when to cross the street, or knowing this when it's safe to cross the street and a pedestrian crossing. But I've started looking at the navigation, the navigation apps, the Google Maps. But it's more just the Be My AI function that's been my godsend so far to date. It reads banknotes, it reads my environment, tells me what's in my environment, tells me everything in the image with a single picture.
Yeah, no, that the Be My Eyes, especially with the Be My AI, since they've added that to it,
Yeah.
it's been great to kind of your phone's become your surrogate eye. And that's great. Another suite of apps I tend to use are the shopping apps. I use Amazon and my PC Express shopping app, which is for a chain of grocery stores here in Canada. and the Walmart app. Those ones, as much as I advocate for getting out there and becoming visually being seen, but shopping at Walmart by myself or as an individual blind requires a lot of. It's slow and tedious using these apps. And hey, I'm looking for shorts,
Yep.
and the Be My Eyes people are pretty helpful, but you go onto the Walmart app or the Amazon app and you look for shorts and you bring it up, you look for your size and you order it and it's on your doorstep in 3 days. So, and the apps have come a long way to become very accessible. And I find that I will shop with the companies that have made their apps accessible before I'll shop at the companies that are inaccessible, even if I'm out in public. So I've and any of you found that at all, Eddie?
I guess you have to think about it. Well, I do. I'm not Eddie. Eddie might be picking up his groceries now. Um,
I'm sorry. I'm here.
no worries, big guy. No worries. No worries. I use the Instacart. I use Amazon, the same that you do. I have not really played around with Walmart so much. I think I used Walmart once to order a heater, and that was actually cool. It is very accessible. I found that Instacart, man, listen, during the pandemic, what Instacart and Amazon, they got me where I needed to go. All my vegetables through Whole Foods for Amazon because they are. I guess I'm not sure if Whole Foods is a subsidiary of Amazon or how right, but I was able to get all my fruits and vegetables, my spices because during the pandemic it was just downtime for everybody, right? Most of my all of my kitchen stuff came from Amazon. And my cereals and stuff, Instacart, and they are very accessible. I'm the same way with you, Jason. That I'll work with the those who work with us, right? You're thankful for it because we have to eat too, and we have to wear clothes too. We don't get to go out naked because we're blind. They don't let us get away with that. So I work with those who work with
Well, we
us
all
as
live in
well.
that northern hemisphere, so even if we could go out naked, we don't want to.
No.
So Eddie, how about you? You use a lot of those apps, the shopping apps and such.
No, I don't really use those too much. I haven't gotten that far from my phone to figure out how to do all that stuff. So I am learning right now, learning more about things. It's definitely very helpful to learn. That's why I'm getting more help to learn it because it makes your life so much easier. You don't have to rely on anybody else.
Definitely, the assistive applications and the assistive technology journey is a long one, and it's I'm lucky. I've got a 14-year-old son. I've got a 29-year-old daughter. I've got 25-year-old and a 27-year-old daughter, like son and daughter as well. So they've helped me learn a lot. As I said early on in this series of podcasts, it was my oldest daughter handed me my cane and told me, "Dad, you better learn how to use this. You kind of need it." Because if it wasn't for those kids, I would still be on an LG Rumor. That was the greatest phone ever when I had it. I loved the flip up keyboard and the way I went. It was the daughter that said, "Hey, Dad, you can upgrade to a smartphone." So absolutely, it we it's great to learn. It takes time to learn it, and it can be frustrating. How about you, Chris? Where both you on the journey to learning some of the systems, like the apps and stuff that are out there?
Just in this moment, you saying that, and you're speaking now, just clarified a thought for me in my mind, at least. I don't know if anyone else here has had this aha moment. Because I've been sighted for, well, I guess the first 54, 53 years of my life before I started going before I started losing my sight. Learning how to live life blind in a sighted world was just the beginning. I then realized I also have to learn how to rely on technology more than I did as a sighted person. As a blind person, I have to rely on readers, cameras to read documents, to read text from a document. I need to use navigation tools. I need to use shopping apps. I need to learn how to use technology to do everyday tasks, which I didn't have to rely on before. And I'm learning more now the patience of relying on technology that I didn't need to rely on before. So for me, this is a learning experience in that regard, not just learning the technology or how to use it, but just learning that I need to rely on this technology now instead of just having it there as a convenience. It's now an actual necessity of life. It's like having, a microwave is being a necessity of life because if I cook food with it, I need the assistive technology to navigate my environment, to perceive my environment. It's a reliance of everyday life now, and I'm still learning that. It's something I need to continue learning, but I'm still getting used to that. It's a whole new, evolving experience for me, having been a recent vision loss person. And I think that may be part of my struggle as a recent vision loss. I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting this across quite the way I want to, but I have to learn the experience of using technology to live life on an everyday basis, not just learning life in general. It's just, I don't know.
Well, Chris, I relate, and being recently blind as well, as like the family went blind 4.5 years ago as well, and like you're saying, like we joke around in the cafe quite a bit, us and some of the ladies in the group too, and we've really discovered, especially me not knowing, I was the first blind person I ever met, and it was how smart you have to be blind to succeed as a blind person, and to function as an independent blind person, and to learn this technology, learning Braille and learning how to write Braille. You got to learn how to write backwards. You don't have to learn that as a grade 1 student in the sighted world, but you got to learn how to write backwards to learn how to write Braille with a slate and stylus. So it's amazing to me on this learning journey, and where we all are, parents. I know we've got we've got Christopher and I are both recently blind, and we've got you, Terrence, have been blind all your life, and Eddie had some usable vision until your late teens, early 20s. So the spectrum is there. Can you talk about what technology was 30 years ago versus what it is today?
So, 30 years ago, there wasn't any smartphones. You had to, and even then, and this is where the playing field was even for a lot of us. Well, sort of. But I think as a society as a whole, we memorize phone numbers more, right? Because they were in your head. Your phones even then could only hold so much, right? So you still had to memorize phone numbers, and you go, man, such and such called me, and that was always the fun part. The dialing of the wrong number, because you learn enough to get into your contact list, and you're like, how many phone calls did I get when such and such called? Was that 3 or 4? And you click down 4, and you go, yeah, is this Michael? Ah, hell. Sorry about that wrong number. Now that's just added to the list of your account again. All right, so 5.
Yeah.
But even then, we were chopping it up about it earlier today. 30 years ago, you still had the Braille display was becoming popular, right? The Braille and Speaks for note taking. but there wasn't nothing that could connect to the internet. And when I was in high school, I got the first note taker, which had a braille display on it. And I was saying, you guys, I fell on it. It was amazing that, and we've talked about it from a literary literacy standpoint, being able to actually continually feel what everybody else see, right? That was the first note taker that could connect to the internet. You could read the websites and the whole 9 yards. It was portable, and you didn't have to take 20 volumes of a book to go with you in order to read a dictionary. You could upload a file. It was a little clunky, but it was possible. And just now, how I hear some of you guys who I jokingly call you guys blind babies, but we didn't have devices that beeped to let you know your glass was full. We didn't have all the talking thermometers and stuff that's available now, right? It's just amazing how things have changed. That it just cross over not just from your phone, but just technology that makes your overall life easy. The biggest thing that I think we had that was a household product was a $300 talking microwave. So, well, then the phone with big buttons. They didn't help us out, but it was
Well,
there.
I'll say I still got the constant burn on the tip of my finger from boiling hot water into a cup. I don't have the thing. I still think some of the technology is a little
Yep,
bit
been there, done.
a little silly.
Yep,
You say your callus gain is
I
real.
find
been
that's
there.
what I find. I don't know if you guys will agree, but there's some really great technology out there, and some just spectacular stuff. Orcam and some of these other things we
Oh
can
yeah,
attach to glasses and everything else. But it's so cost prohibitive that it makes it hard to
yes,
access.
yeah, man. That's always been one of the biggest things because that was the decline of Braille for the simple reason that a Perkins Brailler was $800 to my recollection in 1989, and it still outcosts your entry level tablet, right? And so when you have speech on an Android tablet or an iPad versus buying a kid a $1,000 clunky machine that you need a carry bag for, you get them the tablet, but it it doesn't really help out with the overall big picture. Braille displays, and I'm not sure if it's because of what the cause, if it's what is it, supply and demand, right? But like for a decent device that you can use that's fully accessible for a blind person, at least with Braille on it now, it's like in $5,000 and $6,000 price range, right? And that's something that competes with a laptop on that level, and people can't afford that. And even those who do would rather just buy a laptop. It's really expensive for us to get into those markets.
Well, I know things like the apps that we were talking about, like Seeing AI and the Be My AI and stuff. We can point and shoot, and it'll read back to us what we're pointing at. But
Yeah.
then you go to Orcam. That's the big one on the market right now. That is everyone's loving it, but
Yep.
it's $5,000, and it just makes it's great. It's inconspicuous a little bit. It's a little glass, a little camera that attaches to an arm of sunglasses or an arm of your glasses or whatever, and it reads it into your ears, and you can kind of where you're looking is what it's reading to you. Like, so the motion is familiar from when we were sighted, but at the same time, we're finding that with other things, like the simple white cane that you see to get a good simple white cane is a $45 thing. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're looking at white canes and these apps and other assistive devices, it all adds up. And I'm not trying to be a whiner whatsoever. I think it's a great time. If you're going to be blind now, the technologies out there are great. I wouldn't want to have done this 30, 40, 50 years ago like other members of the group have.
If you'd like to join us, There's always a seat for you in Booth 6 at the International Blind Cafe, Discord server, and Facebook group.
Sweet!